I would like to open up your mind and your heart to the idea that peace can be a way of life, not just the circumstances that are happening to you. And for most of us, peace is based on what is happening to us. For instance, I'm not at peace if I am fill in the blank, fighting with a family member, maybe, or if your favorite show gets canceled. Julia, one of our junior girls, me and her just had a heart-to-heart this past week about how one of our favorite shows 2 seasons in got canceled. It was terrible. Or if you lose at video games. I played video games when I was younger with my brothers, and I will be completely honest, not good words came out of my mouth when I lost to them, and I'm not going to repeat them for you. I am not proud of them. My name is Aubrey Moss, and I am the lead student pastor, and I'm so thankful that you joined us for virtual life groups, and I miss you guys terribly, so much so that I'm going to do something, even though it's kind of embarrassing. I'm going to give you all a cyber hug. You're welcome. You've just been cyber hugged. That just happened to you. But anyways, I wanna offer this different way of having peace. That doesn't have to look at just things that are happening to us, but that it can be a way of life. And this past month, we just did a series called Stuff Jesus Did. And if you paid attention to everything, you'll notice that Jesus lived a life of peace. Everything that he did. And even this past weekend when we were talking about Easter, we just celebrated Easter weekend, where we're celebrating the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. Even when he was being murdered on the cross, when he had every worldly right to be upset and to finally not live a life of peace, he cries out to his Father, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." What? Like, who lives in that much peace? That is so crazy to me. His response is mercy and love. That's Jesus' response. And he's a perfect example of how we can live a life of peace. So I want us to ask a hard question. Are you living a life of peace no matter what is happening around you? Right now we're stuck at home and we're possibly a little bit bored. And I even talked to some only children out there, some students. I love you guys. And you guys said the exact same thing to me when I asked how you're doing. I am so bored. That's how you both responded. And I am so sorry. So if you're an only child out there, we love you. This is a shout out to you. You're not alone. We're here for you. And if you do have a friend who is an only child, make sure you reach out to them this week. Spend some time with them. They need you guys. We need to step it up for them. But if you have siblings and you're stuck at home together, this little cabin fever thing can set in. And I never experienced a quarantine with my siblings, thank goodness. I am not convinced that we would have all survived it, so that was probably a really, really good thing. But when you would put me and my brothers in a house for too long, oh my gosh, we would fight. It was terrible. Like, I don't even know. I'm another not proud moment. But we loved each other, but we were not living a life of peace, let me tell you what. And Mom, if you happen to watch this for any reason, I am so sorry for what we put you through. I remember one time we would put my baby brother, Evan, on our legs, and you know how you can put your legs back and lean back, and then you can put somebody on your feet and launch them? Well, we were having a competition and fight over who could launch my baby brother the furthest across a room. And yes, it ended as badly as you were thinking that it did. And unfortunately, this is not the first time or the last time that we were constantly fighting, that we were not living in peace with each other. We were way more concerned about who was right or who was best. It was all about us, and we were not living a life of peace. And I feel like the way of peace has nothing to do with if you're winning or if you're right. In fact, I don't think that a life of peace even has anything to do with your circumstances around you. It shouldn't dictate that. We can live a life of peace no matter what is happening around us. In Romans 12:17 through 21, Paul writes, "Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone." A lifestyle of peace looks like loving, even when it's hard or when it doesn't make any sense. When you're feeling wronged, what is your first response? Is it to step back and to realize that they're hurting and say, "Hey, I can tell that you're hurting. How can I love you better?" Or is your response to retaliate? Is it to go back and to be right and to win and to prove your point because you have every right to do so? Because peace isn't happening to you, so you get to retaliate without peace. When a family member lashes out because they are not loving peace, how about you start to ask them, how can I love you better? And see what happens. I believe you can have peace even now in the midst of a stay-at-home order during a pandemic. Not because our circumstances are awesome, but because peace does not have to be based on our circumstances. Peace can be a way we live our lives. I think Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example of this as well. See, if we want to say somebody had every right to retaliate, it would be this guy. He was literally being judged and mistreated because of the color of his skin. And this is one of his quotes. It is not enough to say we must not wage war. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it. He lived a life of peace in the midst of chaos, in the midst of pain, even when these horrible things were happening in the world. Because he understood that peace and the sacrifice we have to make for peace is not weakness. In fact, it's strength. Because it means a life of peace no matter what is happening around you. In Romans 12, 1-2, Paul also writes, "And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. The world will tell us that peace depends on what is happening around us and what is happening to us. But when God transforms us, we find a different way. When we experience the love and the mercy that Jesus poured out for us on the cross, when we experience that for ourselves, it transforms us. We can no longer be the same. Now we have that love and that mercy to extend to everyone around us. And that is the way that we can live a life of peace. We can be the people right now that transform our families, our neighbors, anybody that we're FaceTiming and social distancing hanging out with. What would it look like if we were living a life of peace in a way where they noticed something is so different about us that it didn't matter what was going on around us? Didn't matter that we were in quarantine. Didn't matter if they lashed out at us, because we were living a life of peace where we extended love and mercy no matter what was happening. I think that we all have that opportunity. Let God transform you. Let his love and his mercy transform you in a way where you are living a life of peace. And even when the world would tell you, you have the right to retaliate, you have the right to fight with your sibling, you have the right to fight with your mom, you have the right to do this or this or that, we have been transformed by something so much bigger that allows us to live a life of peace in the midst of chaos.